Hi everyone, this is Diane. Doesn't that look pretty? The pretty pastels and the dotted Swiss tulle. They're so pretty. These are the document journals that I just created using stamps from tailor-made journals with creative expressions. They're the ones that she did in tandem with creative expressions. And there are quite a few sets. And I also used her digitals from her Etsy shop, Tailor Made Journals. I will leave information for all the stuff below. I will link Lorna's Etsy shop for the digitals, and I will link scrapbook.com because that's where I got the stamps. And I'm not going to link every individual digital or stamp set. You can search for I will list the names of the digitals that I used. So I'll link the shop, you go to the shop, and then you can search for those sets that I used. And I will talk a little bit more about these and the sets that I used after I show you this little surprise. I made extra ephemera so that I could put some in my shop. I have two bundles. These two they're going to be in one listing. So these I made for the journals, and it turned out that a couple of the ephemera pieces that I made on video were a little bit too big because these journals are so narrow once you get inside, and the pages are even more narrow than the cover. So they're going in these ephemera bundles. So I used her stamp, and I showed in a video how I colored that with Distress Oxide inks. There's muslin and this rosette trim, and this is one of her digitals for the toile wallpaper. And then it's just got scraps inside that you can write on. I did a little stamping inside. This one is her stamp, and the other ones are from a sample set. Or that one is. This is Button Boutique from Paper Tray Ink. And then there's an envelope. This is her stamp, Lorna's stamp, and I embellished it. And this I used as a belly band in these journals, but if you're making a larger journal, this could be a fun tuck spot. It's nice and sturdy. And then I cut this out with my Big Shot and a die and stamped on it, so you could fold it around something or tuck it into a pocket, use it as a tuck spot. And I also die cut this and stamped it. I love that stamp. It is so gorgeous. And then this is the bundle that I made with different stamps from the French ads. She has two sets of French ads stamps, and I think these stamps will represent both of those sets. And then this one at the top is a signature, and that's from a sample set. I just needed something little to go on that. So that is one set, and this listing will be a grab bag. So if you purchase from this listing, you'll get either this set or this set. And I'll just show you what the differences are real quick. The envelope is a little bit different, and this one has a different toile wallpaper. This is the same. This one is a different doily cut. That one is the same, and this is the same, I think. The other one might not have that piece on it. And then the other set with some leftovers. This was a different booklet. It's a trifold booklet with her toile wallpaper, and this one was way too big for the pages, and I didn't make a second one, so that's why I had to do a second listing. This is her stamp right here and back here. I did two, one of each of the doilies. And then these pieces that I had die cut, this one is torn, and then I stamped on them. I showed these in a video, so I included those in this bundle. I think there are 8 pieces in this, and maybe 10 in this, counting all these little pieces. But the details will be in the listing for these. I'm not sure when these are going to be listed, so I'm just going to say when you see the video, all of these things will be in my shop. And I also want to say that I'm going to hang on to this one for a while. I don't know if I will end up selling it, but for now I'm going to hang on to that one and call it mine. And it's happened before that I wanted to keep one and then I ended up selling it. So just for now, I'm going to keep this one. I want to show you the millinery flowers that are on here because this is an advertisement for the Opera French Millinery. And this is one of her stamps, of course. And I have these vintage millinery flowers that actually came off of old hats that I bought at estate sales. So let's take a look at this one. We have a blue one and we have the mint one. So this is a closure. I'm calling it a closure card. I didn't invent this. I've seen other people do it. It's on a sturdy cardstock. And this is embossed with gold embossing powder. Sari silk. And I sewed netting with dotted Swiss on it, on this one. And then I forgot to sew it onto the other ones, and I really wanted it there, so I had to glue it, but then, of course, the glue shows through. So then I added this polyester velvet ribbon. So then I went ahead, even though this was sewn on, I added the velvet ribbon onto this. So this is her French document cover set. And I printed it on cardstock, and then I sewed some muslin, coffee-dyed muslin, to the other side of it. And I sewed a piece of a handkerchief to be pockets on front and back. One thing I did, before I get into this, let me show you. Let me show you the kits that I used. These are French cheques, French receipts. I also printed one French letter at least. These are French roast coffee dyed papers, and I love these. It's a huge set of papers. All of her sets are huge. You get a lot of stuff. And I did something special with those. And these are the toile wallpapers, and these is also two sets. I have two sets of the French embroidery, and it's actually pages from a French embroidery magazine, and they are really, really cool. And I used some of them, and a shabby chic wallpaper set. I also used I think it's lace coffee dye lace paper. I don't know, but I used the coffee dye lace paper and the French roast paper as a background. On some of the French embroidery and the wallpapers, I glued these pages to the backs of the wallpaper. So this is a shabby chic wallpaper. This is the lace coffee dye. And there's a variety of designs. And it makes it sturdy like cardstock when you glue it together. And then I took these pages. These are ones that I already cut up. And I cut them into tags. So I made a lot of tags in different sizes with those. And that's what this is. This is one of her wallpapers. And I used one of my embossed pieces, put an eyelet there and a piece of string. And this is one of her vintage lady photos. She has a large kit of vintage lady photos, and then that's one of her stamps. There are quite a few vintage and antique items within these journals too, and I will point them out. This is an antique embossed Victorian piece that was in a scrapbook, and that's a digital label. And this is one of her French embroidery pages. And I sewed a piece of, there's a little bit of glue here I'm trying to get off. There we go. A little piece of crocheted trim with blue on it, and that is vintage. It's a hand crochet. in a very old order form. A piece of tissue paper that came out of an old journal, and it has numbers stamped on it. This is a piece of really nice stationery that I bought at a printing press demonstration place in Williamsburg, Virginia. And I used one of her stamps there and one here. And this is a vintage lotion label, and that's genuine. There's a vintage doily here, and this came out of a book about fashion. And I added this vintage piece of netting that had the satin on it. This actually I cut out of a underskirt or crinoline or half slip or something. It was in, I got it at a flea market, and more hand crocheted. This came from a vintage ledger book. I love that part there. And a vintage handwriting paper. This is quite brittle. I put a strip of Lorna's toile wallpaper there. That's one of her stamps. Here's that envelope that I had put in the ephemera kit. And inside of each one of these that are in the journals, I put one of Lorna's French cheques. I folded it up and distressed it and tucked it into the envelope. And this is one of her stamps. It's got some vintage lace there. This is a vintage, oh, I'm sorry, there's the flap of the envelope. This is her paper here. And that's one of her stamps that I stamped on ledger paper, vintage ledger. This is vintage graph paper, and I put in it a vintage German paper in pink. It's so pretty, 1960. And this is a genuine vintage check, 1925. I love the punched holes there. And this is one of her stamps. And here is that piece that I made that I showed you from the ephemera sets. And it is attached to this page with that brad. So you can pull that out so you can write on the backs of those if you want to. This is vintage. And a vintage linen part created this pocket with one of Lorna's stamps and this little vintage lace. This tag was created from one of those sheets of the embroidery paper and the French roast coffee paper. This is a die cut reinforcer, and then this string came off of this. I think I got this in a Happy Mail a long time ago. I thought it was cool to use those plain strings instead of ribbons or sari silk, or I just like the way they look on these journals. This is a white sack. I did not put anything in there. You could cut a very narrow strip of cardstock to insert in there that you could write on. This is one of Lorna's stamps and the wallpaper with the French roast coffee back. And I love this crochet piece. I stamped some lines on the back of that sack with corrugated cardboard. And here I have clipped a vintage or antique calling card. The name is Burton Whitley. Isn't it romantic looking? And then this is a bank statement from 1927. That's just a plain yellow piece of paper. It's vintage. And then on the back side, I have an antique postcard, and it's an Easter postcard. This is vintage music sheet, and I folded it up and then added lace in this pretty vintage trim. And in this pocket is a page from a vintage or antique Italian book. This book was in terrible shape when I bought it. It didn't have a cover. It had a paper bag for the cover. Somebody made a cover for it. I don't have it right here. When I was sewing this book together, my thread got caught here. So I have to re-glue that, but also it tore it here a little. So I'm gonna attach a piece of vintage cellophane tape. I'll just glue that there. And then this is one of her stamps. And on this side, we have a vintage cigarette card with a pretty lady on it. And then we have almost antique receipt or bill, you know, what you'd get after you bought something. And it's 1931. And this is a Mother Goose playing card, a game card for children. That's Old King Cole. There's the other side of that bag. Again, nothing in there, but you can, I guess you do it on this side. You can cut a cardstock to put in there. On this side is another one of her photos. And it says vintage ladies photos, but there are men and children in the collection too. You can get a lot of pages. That's just some vintage trim, and then one of the tags that I made with her toile wallpaper. You can see I did stenciling on the plain pages. Here is the tuck spot that we made that wasn't too big. And this is one of her stamps, that perfume bottle. And then two more tags with her wallpaper. This has a reinforcement kind of a tape there. And this is another antique Victorian piece. And here I added the German measuring tape and her stamp here. And this is a letter in Dutch from the it says 1947. And it's on airmail paper. And then this, I have the original piece of this. It is Victorian, and I'll probably never sell it. I have two of these that have different green vases, and I just made copies of them so I could include one in each journal. Lorna's paper. This is one of the French receipts that I aged. This is her stamp, and this is her stamp. One of the ads. Well, that's what they both are. And this is a real label for complexion beautifier. Here we have an antique calling card again. Very beautiful and in good condition. There's I don't know if this is French. I have French and German, and I am not familiar with that word at all, but it's to win. And there is one of her lovely ladies cards, and that's another one of Lorna's sets. Here's the other side of the tissue paper. This trim is a pocket at the top, that vintage receipt just wrapped around there. And then this is another wallpaper and French roast coffee card. I just rounded the corners, inked around it. I love this page from the French embroidery set. And then another wallpaper and lace. Another one of her lovely ladies. There are 13 folded pages, and that makes 52 front and back pages to write on, and that doesn't include the doily. I didn't count the doily. And I didn't count the envelope. That's on one of the pages. So I'll go more quickly through this. Now this one, I put rosettes on this. This was the first one I made. And then I decided, I realized it said French millinery, so I decided I should use some of my millinery flowers. So this one has some beautiful millinery flowers on it, and the little bow that came off a hat. And this one is a very, very pale greenish color, and I used this mint. Now when I did not cut the tulle really straight, and I wanted it to look off, and so when I put the glue on, it went at an angle, and then I had to cover that glue with the ribbon. So if you don't mind that, it's okay. This one looks straighter, and I don't mind that. I wanted it to be askew, but the ribbon really accents that, but I didn't want to let the glue show. So here we have this very thin white cotton handkerchief as a pocket. And here is the tag with one of Lorna's photos and her stamp. And this string came off of this. I think that's vintage. I'm not sure. And there is a real vintage Denison label right here, and a Victorian scrapbook piece. And it's much the same. It has the same old perfume or lotion label there. Oh, this one, I have to add this to the other two journals. This is a vintage vanilla label from Rexall Drugs. And this is just, I think this came from a Anna Griffin set of ephemera. It's a cardstock piece with gold metallic on it. There's a check in there, a digital check. And I couldn't find the stamped circle that I had made, so I had this handy, so I glued that down. And then, of course, I found the stamped label later. The same pieces are inside here, except this one has a playing card, and I don't think the other one did. I love this. This is one of the shabby chic digitals with the house. Here is the calling card. It has a stain on the corner. And this is one of those bank statements, 1926. So I got to use a lot of Lorna's things, and also quite a few of my digital, or not my digital, my vintage things. Love this postcard. And this one has the Italian page and a shampoo label, vintage shampoo label. Look at this pretty satin embroidered trim there. Cigarette card, and this receipt is from 1887. And another Mother Goose card, Jack and Jill. The other one had something on that page. Let's see what it was. Oh, I guess it didn't. It's on the front. It's on the front side of it. There's one of her stamps on the bag. The Dutch letter. Oh, this is an antique piece there. That's something I had stamped from one of my other stamp sets. I already had it stamped, and I Just thought it would look cute there. A vintage hair oil label, very pretty. And here's another antique calling card. Has the name underneath. This kind of helps protect the antique cards from the paper clip. That's one of Lorna's lovely lady cards. Another piece of vintage trim there. And this handkerchief, I cut it a little bit shorter than I should have, so I added this lace there. And these will have their own listing, so I'm calling this one the Mint. I don't know what the name is going to be of the journals, but maybe it'll be called French Millinery. I don't know. But this is mint and this one is blue. Do you want me to quickly go through the pink one? If I decide to put it in my shop, I would go through it anyway. But I'll just quickly flip through it. I just thought I might want to keep this because Lorna's my friend and I used all Lorna's stuff in it. And it's pink. This one had some writing on it in pen, so I added a small vintage complexion beautifier label. It's pocket size, it says. I love that stamp on this color of coffee dyed paper, and I used the Acorn Marie VersaFine Clair, and I just thought that acorn ink looked so beautiful on that pink. There's the Easter postcard. The Italian book page. Two pages clipped together. This is the second one of those. Victorian piece up there. This is French letter, I think. It's one of Lorna's. Garden flower, an oriental, invigorating, delightful toilet preparation, soothing after shaving and massaging. All right, there they are. So when you see this video, these are in my shop and these two journals are in my shop. I thank you so much for your attention. I know that there were a lot of videos leading up to this flip through, and I know I don't get a lot of views on the videos when I do a lot for one journal, but some of you really like to see the process. And that's what I'm spending my time doing, so that's what I video. So I really appreciate all of you who watched one or all of the videos. And I hope that you will follow the link below, and you can find all of these things in my shop, unless somebody beat you to them. And I'll be back with another fun project. I have something in mind. I'll probably do a couple other videos before I start the next project because I have some videos in mind too. So, you know, I'm a busy girl. We'll be getting it done, and I'll see you soon. Have a creative day. Bye-bye.